Hannah Duncan-Jones from Local Government Victoria. What is the Integrated Strategic Planning and Reporting Framework?
So the Integrated Strategic Planning and Reporting Framework is really the central piece of the Act. It's what brings together the work of Council in an integrated way so that the aspirations of the community can be expressed through all of the strategies that Council prepares. So it is about how you develop your plans, your vision, your budget, your rating strategy, your financial plan, and how you then monitor and report on those to your community about what you've achieved. The important part of the Integrated Strategic Planning and Reporting Framework is the leadership role that councillors will take in developing all of the documents that are contained within it and leading conversations with community, and then the Mayor reporting back on performance of the council plan in relation to all of those integrated components on an annual basis. So it really is the absolute central part that councils need to concentrate on and make sure that it's informed by that community engagement that they've undertaken.
And is it fair to say a key element of that is the way all of those components are connected together and working in concert rather than separate pieces of work?
Absolutely. So it's not like what might have been happening previously where individual strategies were developed in isolation. This is about how you integrate each piece so they each speak and support each other so that you're achieving those integrated outcomes. And so the community can see that you're holding true right across from what's your vision, your plan, to how you're expending your finances.
Hannah, what are the key documents in the framework and what are the timelines for delivery looking like?
So the really key documents are the vision, the council plan, the budget, and the financial plan and asset plan. Now, there is timelines that have been developed for this first year of council that reflect the bulk of the work that needs to be done. So there is the opportunity to take a bit longer. So you could take until October to develop your vision and your council plan. And that way, make sure that you've undertaken that deliberative process with your community. The asset plan comes in 2022. So it's recognising that there is work to do when you're talking in an integrated approach about how you integrate an asset plan with all of the other strategic plans. So that gives even more time to bring the asset plan into play. And this cycle will play out after each new council, but there is also the review process that will happen within each council term. So it's really, really important. Those are the key documents, but there's other things that are equally important that hang off it. Things like the workforce plan. Without a workforce plan, how did you deliver against those things that are included within all of your strategies? And that then links really importantly to gender equality, that we'll be talking about it in one of these videos as well, and about how you're going to set those targets around gender equality for your organisation so that you're developing an organisation that reflects the community in which you are operating. So there's a whole range of integrations. It's not just the key plans, there's other plans that sit there as well. Really, really important to look at them as a holistic piece and to think about how you utilise the timeframes that are in the Act to build on each piece and let them speak to each other.
Stephen Cooper, what happens to plans that are already in existence when the new council comes into being in relation to the Integrated Strategic Planning and Reporting Framework?
I think that's an interesting point, Chris, because a lot of councils will have longer term financial plans, revenue and rating strategies, asset plans, for example, that were developed under the old regime. The fact of the matter is we've got a new Local Government Act 2020, and it requires the council to adopt some of those same plans. Now, the joy for those councils that have already done the work is this won't be as difficult a process, but the reality is it will still have to go through the steps of reviewing and adopting the process in accordance with any of the requirements that might exist under the 2020 legislation.
Steve, how do you see councillors and council staff receiving training and guidance in relation to their responsibilities with the new framework?
Chris, I know that Local Government Victoria have done a fairly substantial piece of capacity building work through September and October of the year 2020. And that's really been an exercise in skilling up the sector around the principles-based approach to integrated strategic planning and reporting. I think it would be a folly to sort of expect that Local Government Victoria will deliver how-to training on an ongoing basis. And the risk, because the risk of that is that any such training from head office, if you like, would be seen as setting the standard, at which all councils must achieve. And we know that that framework needs to be applied from the very largest metropolitan councils through to the smallest of rural councils, and needs to work in each case. So I think what you'll see is that capacity building having taken place, that the various peak bodies, that private providers will engage in programs on an ongoing basis around what the implementation will look like. One of the features of the new Act, of course, is that it better facilitates regional cooperation between councils. I'd expect you'd see the continued growth and development of best practice networks within the sector, where information is shared about the approaches different councils are taking.
Hannah, how does all this work around the framework fit with the community engagement policy that we've been speaking of?
So the community engagement piece is really, really critical, and developing that policy by the 1st of March is critical. And I encourage you to utilise the process of developing the policy to test out the ideas that you might put into practice to develop those plans. So to really think about how you can test and pilot some things that will work in relation to deliberative engagement in developing your vision and your council plan before you finally settle it on the 1st of March. It is about that conversation with community. It's about getting a really good representation of your community. So how do you ensure that the voices that you're hearing in developing these pieces are representative of your community, and that you're lifting it away from perhaps some of those cohorts or groups that have had a lot of influence, but now needing to spread that influence into wider parts of the community. So how do you get the voice of youth? How do you get the voice of your traditional owners? And that's a really critical piece, because they're clearly recognised as part of your municipal community. And as we work towards treaty, it's really important that they are involved in their local council and have an opportunity to have a voice. In the way that they want that voice to be expressed. So community engagement, absolutely critical piece.
So we're talking about engagement that's truly representative of the community, but when we say community engagement and deliberative engagement, Hannah, the two terms, they're not really interchangeable, are they?
So they're not. So I guess that, the thing about community engagement is it's a whole spectrum. You may well have heard of the IAP2 framework, which talks about the spectrum of engagement from inform through to empower. And there's a number of tools that then sit underneath each of those 5 components of the framework. And deliberative engagement is sitting up there in relation to collaborate and empower. And deliberative engagement is about processes that enable you to seek that representation. We understand this needs to be scalable, and that's why we've been working really closely with the local government sector around how to understand scalability. How do you start? How do you build up? How do you change over time as you build more capability and capacity in relation to this deliberative engagement? So it will be about getting representative samples, about maybe things like panels that you bring together. You could bring together a panel for the whole duration of the term, or just around specific things, those sorts of things that inform and enable the community to directly speak to what council is developing.
So with this new framework in place, if you want people to take away 2 or 3 key messages about this, Hannah, what would they be?
So I think the really important message is about the leadership. This needs to be led by council and by the organisation. And in doing that, it's about a cultural change for community in relation to the conversation you're having with them, a cultural change within council about bringing together what may have been siloed departments into bringing together an integrated piece. So that leadership piece by the Mayor and the CEO is absolutely critical. The other thing is really important is that this is a learning journey, and learning by doing is what's going to deliver the best results. So don't get sort of completely and totally caught up in trying to plan the perfect. Plan what you think you can deliver and build on it as you go. I think those are the really key things. So learn by doing, build as you go, and leadership, absolutely critical.
Hannah, can you tell us what are the key dates in relation to the integrated strategic planning and reporting framework that people are working towards?
So the big 4 documents are your community vision, and that must be adopted by October 2021. The council plan, also October 2021. The financial plan covering at least 10 years from October 2021 as well. But there is a difference. The asset plan is required by June 2022. So really important to make sure that you spend that time about how you integrate your asset plan with those other documents. And that's why there's an extra period of time in order to get that piece of work done.